Think I'm live. Okay. Well, I am off work this week and I thought I would do a quick challenge to see if I could build an app in under a week using only AI tools. Um, I want to make this a little different from the typical vibe coding video that you see. There's a bunch of these vibe coding tutorials and things like that on YouTube streams that show people just typing stuff into Cursor, hitting approve, and building an app in like 30 minutes. And I want to build something that's like a little more sustainable, like with an architecture that is um, not quite leaning fully into the vibe coding like type tools, and still bring some like elements of engineering and design into the practice. So I'm really just don't have a lot of plans for this yet. I do have a prompt that I started on, and other than that, no code has been written. Um, so I'll read through the prompt real quick, and then we'll take this, we'll paste it into Cursor, and get started. So the prompt is, I want to build a desktop database client that will allow users to chat with an LLM to create queries that will get issued against connected databases. So if you've used a database client, then you know that you add your connection details to your database, and then you can write SQL in it, and then you can hit enter, submit a query against your database, and it'll query it, or you can edit data and things like that. So the idea is building a client like that, but one that, similar to Cursor, has a LLM interface that you can chat with and say it's a database of, um, like an employee database. You could say, how many of my employees live in Australia and are, uh, have been at the company less than 3 months. So you could speak in natural language to the LLM, and the LLM would create a query for you, and you can execute that query against your data. Um, I see it as like part productivity tool, but also part for learning SQL. I'm not great at SQL myself, so for me, it's almost more of an educational tool to say like, all right, here's how I would describe the query in natural language, and the LLM will kind of teach you how to actually build the query out. So that's the app. In terms of uh, tech stack, I'd like to use Electron because this will be a desktop app. Um, React, Recoil, those are just front end technologies that I'm familiar with. And ShadCDN or ShadCN is a UI framework. So I think this is enough to get started. So I'm going to post this in Cursor real quick. I do have some rules for this week-long challenge here. There's only two. You can shows how much I've planned for this, but the first rule is to code by hand as little as possible, but still have a maintainable architecture. I've done a lot of vibe coding, and these projects quickly run away from you. So the idea is that we'll design an architecture to start, and then we'll just use AI to implement those little bits of the architecture piece at a time, rather than just saying, here's the entire idea for the app, hit enter, and see what happens. So I think by piecing it out, we'll build something that doesn't run away from us and allows us to build something sustainable, because I do want to launch this and maintain it over time. So, all right, I'm going to take this prompt and paste it into Cursor. One thing I want to add to it is at the bottom, I'm going to say, describe a technical design for this application and before doing any coding. This is something I add to almost any new app that I start with an AI tool like Cursor. It's good to just get an overview of what we're building back from the LLM before we start building anything. So I'm going to paste this in. We're using Claude 3.7 Sonnet agent mode. So in case you're interested. Increase the size on this for y'all. So there it is. It's already cranking away. Let's get my chat window up in case people are pouring into the chat. Yeah, there's no one here. Okay, cool. So let's read through this real quick. We've got a high-level overview, database client with LLM query generation, technical design, architecture overview. Core components are an Electron shell. That'll be our desktop software, our desktop wrapper. It basically just wraps a browser. React application, database connection manager, LLM integration, chat interface, SQL editor. Data flow, user connects to database, connection stored in app state. Yep. User chats with LLM, LLM generates SQL queries. Queries displayed in SQL editor. Users can edit before execution. Query executed against connected database, results displayed. Yep. Component details, database connection, connection, configuration, storage, credentials, connection strings. Yes, database metadata. Yes, we'll need that for the LLM. Connection pool management, query execution. I'm going to paraphrase some of this. Okay. Chat interface, message history storage. Yeah, so we'll want to store the message history so you can come back to it later, similar to what Cursor does up here. And we'll just, for now, we can just keep that in local storage. If we want, we could put it in file storage since we're using Electron. Chat UI components, context retention. Yes, that'll be important, is to retain context between messages. You don't want to have to retype everything if you've got like a chat history. SQL editor, yes, that all looks good. State management, chat history, yeah, okay. Technical considerations, future extension servicing for chat history. Okay, would you like me to start implementing this design? Yeah, let's start with the Electron shell and let's just get a quick desktop application shell up and running. Yes, let's start with the Electron shell implementation. That'll get us just a surface to start building in. All right, let's let Cursor run this. We are already in this directory. That's okay. Well, actually, I'm going to stop this because I don't want this nested directory. Delete. We're already in the directory, so you don't need to create one. My pet name for this project is AutoQuery, so I'm already in a directory called AutoQuery. So, all right, let's install the necessary dependencies. Yes, this all looks good. So it's going to install Electron Builder, which I don't know, is that a CLI or something? React, React DOM, Recoil. So just basically all the front end kind of client libraries are getting installed here. So let's hit run. So far, haven't had to code yet, but we're just getting started. So, okay, so that finished. All right, we've got some dev dependencies. These are basically just going to let us help us build the project. So let's run this. All right, those are installed. Save dev Vite, Vite.js plugin, Vite. I don't remember what Vite is. What is Vite? Vite TypeScript. Build tools. Okay. It's transpilation TypeScript and a JavaScript. All right. I haven't used Vite, but whatever. ShadCN UI. Okay, let's install this. ShadCN is a UI library that just gives you out of the box components like this, so you don't have to build them from scratch. So things like database, like tables like this will be super handy. You know, maybe at some point we'll do like data visualizations for the data that comes back. Yeah, so I don't want to have to write all this by hand, so this will be super helpful. All right, project structure. So it wants to create directories called source main, render components, render pages, render store, render hooks, render styles. Okay. So yeah, Electron has a couple different processes. There's like the renderer process where it's like rendering the UI, and then there's like the main process, which is like a separate from the renderer, and it kind of allows coordination with like the file system and the operating system. So the render is where we'll build all the UI. So let's hit run. It'll create some directories for us. All right, we've got our first bit of code in here. It's creating some more files. So let's read through this first. So this is going to be the main. I believe this will be the main file that like bootstraps the renderer process and gets the UI up and running. So it's going to create a browser window, which is just like a new. Think of it as like, you know, if this was Electron, this would be a browser window at a preset height, so 1200 by 800 pixels. Preload. I think this will like allow you to execute some scripts before it starts. So it's like a preload script. Start URL. So it's just going to run this on a process on your local host port 3000. So it'll load the URL, open the dev tools so we can do development on it if we're in dev mode. And then when you close it, it'll just destroy this main window variable here. Okay, cool. And there's some lifecycle stuff. So like when the app's ready, it calls this function. And when the window's closed, it'll call app quit just to free up memory, I assume. And then some other, I'm not sure what the difference between when ready and activate is, but just gotta trust. You gotta trust. All right, well, so we'll accept that one. All right, it's got another file for me. This is main preload. Okay, so this is the preload script that was referred to in index here. So this is connect to database, expose protected methods that allow the renderer process to use the IPC render without exposing the entire object. Okay, so context bridge, I assume. It's been a while since I've worked with Electron, but I assume it's a bridge that allows you to communicate across processes. IPC render, invoke, disconnect. Okay, so basically just exposing some functions to expose in main world. It's a fun function name. Exposing some functions to allow the renderer process to communicate with the main process. So these all look good. We've got some compile errors too, and I think these will resolve. It looks like there's some either dependencies that are not installed or the TypeScript definitions aren't installed, but I'm not worried about these right now. All right, this is the TS config. I think once I accept this, then and potentially reopen cursor, that should resolve these errors. Um, this looks pretty standard TypeScript configuration. So let's take that. All right, separate config for the like node process. I guess the main process is a node process. Config, and this is for our. This looks like Babel, but this is just like our compiler, TypeScript compiler. So, all right, what else? NPM package. So this is just like for all describes all the dependencies or the libraries that we'll install. So, um, strangely, I don't see any dependencies in here. Okay. All right, the rest of this is all just kind of boilerplate. So this will be our main index.html file that the renderer process renders. It doesn't have much in it. It's just got the root HTML element that the app will bind to. So it's got this ID, and then somewhere in the script, the main.tsx script, there will be some function that finds this element and renders the whole app within it. So we'll accept that, and this is our app. This is the at least the the top level component for our app. And here's where it's finding that element and rendering the app within it. So it's got some elements to get us set up with React, which is like our UI library, and Recoil, which is our state library. So any data we want to store in the app while we're using the app will be managed by Recoil. And then app here is just going to be like the start of all of our components. So we'll accept that. Yeah, we'll have to figure out how to resolve all these TypeScript issues. But yeah, so top level app. So we've got a nice chunky header here with our app name in it, which we'll definitely be getting rid of. List of our connections, maybe not a list, just this is like a button for creating a new connection. And then we've got our chat. It's already building out a lot of this UI, and it's maybe a little more than I was expecting it to do to just get the Electron like boilerplate set up, but this is fine. We'll deal with it. Okay, and then here's some just a quick look at the state that our app will have. So chat history, current query. This will be like the query that's being worked on. Your connections, your current connection, result of your query, which is like after you've run the query, what does the result look like? And then whether you're loading or not. So this looks good. Let's accept that. Okay. This is some basic styles for the app. This is all pretty standard. Looks good. It looks like I'm not a big fan of Tailwind, or, I'm kind of lukewarm on it, but this is just like your Tailwind config that will have, like if you want to have a theme that comes from Shadcey, and you can kind of configure that here. Let's see. All right, let's keep cranking through this. Okay, this is going to be handling for various types of SQL databases. So it looks like we're setting up um, based on the type of database. We've got a couple different like drivers that we're bringing in. So MySQL, Postgres, SQLite, MS SQL, and Oracle. And it will create a connection with a certain ID. The ID is going to be, I'm not sure. I'm assuming the database driver returns an ID for a unique connection. So you're just like, you've got an array of connections here stored by ID. with some error handling, and then the IPC process is the one that's handling the connection, which makes sense since, yeah, you won't be able to connect to a database from the renderer process since it's just like a browser window essentially. So all of that will be handled um, from the main process here, and then we'll just be surfacing data between your renderer process and your main process as it connects. Okay, all right. Okay, here's where we're actually wrapping all of the different database drivers, like connection functions. So Postgres, SQLite, connect to MySQL. Glad we have AI for things like this because it makes all of this like cross-platform, cross-database platform stuff super easy. So still got some type errors. Again, we'll have to figure out why the types aren't working correctly yet. Okay, LLM config. So this is also in the main process, and this is initializing LLM handlers. So um, I think these handle functions are when the renderer process emits a message to this main process, it will fire this event, and then this is like the handler function when it hears one of these events. So it's basically just setting some configuration for the LLM we're using. Generate query, generate SQL query from natural language. So let's see, get the prompt here, the database schema. So when we create a prompt or issue a prompt, it's going to contain the schema for the database so that the LLM can have like the context. So it'll have like the entire schema of like, here's all the tables and the different rows and the types for those rows. So it'll have all that context whenever you're asking the database a question or the LLM a question. In real implementation, this would call an LLM API. For now, we'll just return mock data. Okay, that's fine. I'm glad it didn't jump all the way into like issuing a query against an LLM. We still need to figure out which LLM we'll use, but I think for this stream today, we'll just kind of be getting like the initial components of this setup. Okay, function to generate SQL from natural language. So this is, yeah, this will be where we're okay, yeah, this is just returning some mock data. So like if I typed users into the LLM right now, or into the chat window right now, it's going to return just this basic query here. So, all right, let's go ahead and accept that. And what is this file? So this is like the main index. So this is just like a sort of main file for the main process that will kind of bind all these files that we just looked at. Will get registered in this main index file that gets run. So that's our initialize handler. So the database and the LLM handlers get set up there. It looks like there's some chat handlers here too. I guess not enough to warrant its own initialize file, but doing similar stuff where you set up event listeners that the renderer process, the UI window can send to this main process. Okay, cool. This all looks good. How many more files do we got? All right, so now we're looking at UI components. So we've got the SQL editor, which is a button, one that says clear, and one that says run, and then a text area. It's pretty standard. And it'll focus that when the UI opens, so the cursor will be, or the caret will be inside the input. And this all looks pretty good, so let's accept it. The chat interface is input, chat history, current query is loading. Some basic state up here. A function for submitting your query. This is just putting a mock query in here. I think it's I don't even know if this is going to the main process with this. It kind of just looks like it's simulating it. Um, Set chat. Yeah, I don't see anywhere in here where it's actually going to the main process yet. So for now, it's just whenever you type something in the chat and hit enter, it's gonna like loop through these and just say, oh, you typed users, you typed count, then just set these mock queries, which is fine. Again, it's fine for right now. All right, and then for the UI, we've got your chat history, just looping over the messages, distinguishing between the user messages and the LLM messages, so you can see which are yours, which are the LLMs, and then input. Okay, with the send button. Cool. All right, that's all the files. So we've got, it kind of ran out of steam here. It created a bunch of stuff for me, and then there's a rule and cursor that will stop after 25 tool calls for one prompt. So I think it got a good bit done here. I think we should try to run it. So I'll need a reminder on running all this. Okay, let's try to run the Electron app. Install dependencies. I thought we did this, but I didn't see them in the package JSON, so let's run this. Okay, so these are just types for the window object. These are like window.connect to database, window.disconnect. These are things that aren't on the window, like a browser window's main object that we're adding to it so that the render UI process can call the main process. Okay, now let's update the app TSX to use our chat and SQL editor components. Sure. All right. All right, that's simplified our main app.tsx file because now we just brought in SQL editor, chat, and we were able to delete a bunch of the crap that like it eventually or initially put in this file. So, all right, initialize Tailwind. Let's do it. It's a little weird that Cursor didn't install all these packages at first. Yeah, I'm still just not sure why there's no packages listed in the package JSON. This should have all of my dependencies in it. I'm going to add it to the cursor chat. It doesn't seem like any of my packages are getting added to package.json. I'm wondering if at the very beginning it created that directory in AutoQuery. Sometimes it can get thrown off if the directory has a wrong directory assumption. You're right. That may be why our types are failing. Well, okay, yeah, here are the types right here. I thought we had a main process, but I think you need like a very top level process. Yeah, okay. Um, gotcha. Okay, cool. All right, and then we've got a script to run this. So dev electron will be cross node sets the node in. So when we run this, we'll be running it in development mode, which means we'll refresh when we're adding code, and then it's running on port 3000. Just running a like basic server on port 3000 to serve the app, runs Electron, um, and then I'm assuming we'll have to run both this and this to get the app going. But let's npm run dev. Oh no, this dev is going to run both dev vite and dev electron, so we'll just run npm run dev. Okay, cool. Let's close out some of these config files since they're not super necessary right now. All right, so we're gonna run it. Let's let cursor run it first. So if there's any issues, like here we are. Yeah, there's definitely something weird going on with the package JSON. Let's see. I'm going to run this myself. So let's open up a terminal and okay, let's just try npm run dev concurrently. Command not found. Okay, so we need to install concurrently. Okay, well, we almost got there. There's an error here. Let's see. Let's see if we can turn this back over to cursor to do this. Yeah, that's the problem. So this is why the package JSON wasn't showing dependencies. It was still in this nested auto query directory that I deleted or like originally. So let's get back up to, um, yeah, this is what we want. All right, this should work now. Hopefully we've sorted all these directory issues. Let's run this. Okay, so now it'll have the context on this error we just saw over here. You would think, right? We'll just paste the, oh, okay. Let's just paste the output of this error. Okay, we'll say running npm run dev resulted in this error. I do think this, we've resolved our TypeScript issues. These are still showing an error because I just don't think we have these installed because of our package JSON issues. At least the types aren't installed. Okay. Okay. Let's try it again. There we go. Something's opening, but it looks like it's not loading the right renderer process because you see it's just a blank screen right now. Failed to load a URL with error connection refused. That's fun. All right. Let's copy this. We'll say, okay, the Electron window opens, but there, but it just loads a blank screen, and there's this error in the console. Error connection refused. Seems like some sort of like cross origin. There's no server. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why it set both of these to run the same script, but web security false. Okay. It wants a new preload, which I guess this is fine not being TypeScript since it's a pretty small file, but see if this fixes things. Okay, what else? All right, we still don't have we still don't have anything in the UI. Context bridge API can only be used when context isolation is enabled. Should probably tell Cursor about this. And also try to figure out why the UI is not rendering. Okay. There's still no UI. And there's this error in the render console. Need to add these to the types. Okay. Oh, I've had 2 visitors. Sick. All right. All right, we're gonna try to run this again. And we still have no UI. Server responded with a status of 404. I don't know if that's related. Let's see. Yeah, it's not finding the server. The server doesn't seem to be running. Okay. Uh, the render process is seeing a 404 when running, when requesting localhost 3000. Little snags like this are why I'm still bullish on AI, but I still feel like you definitely need a human in the loop right now to build anything sort of significant without just running into just endlessly refreshing cursor and seeing if it can fix sort of arcane errors like this. Okay, so cursor thinks this is a path issue. So it's a public folder with a favicon. Okay, stop the existing process. All right. Okay, we're up. We're up and running. So it did fix it. This is all green. This looks good. Blow it up a little bit. So we've got a header here, and we've got our chat interface query, and then we can create a connection here. So right now you can't actually create a connection. It's just a dummy button. But my assumption is we would have like a little modal that pops up. You get new connection, little window pops up, and you can type in your connection details. And then we've got our chat here. So let's just say, I think it had something with users like show me all of my users. I've generated a SQL query based on your request. Here it is. Select all from users, limit 10. And I think this should be I don't know if we have formatting on this. I mean, it seems to format this SQL query well, but this is also just coming from like hard-coded text. So we'll definitely want like some like IntelliSense and maybe syntax highlighting and things like that. But if I run this, let's see what happens. Okay, these don't work. but the clear works. But let's see, let's do that again. Show me all of my users. It'd be nice to have a little refresh button on that, but let's hit that. And then, okay, it does simulating like some time between submitting your response and the response coming back, or your query and the response coming back. So it generates this and then puts it inside the SQL editor. So again, yeah, running this doesn't do anything, but my expectation is that like you'd probably have this window not take up so much room. So you could have like the results displayed, like when you run this, you would see the results somewhere. So we'll want to do some thinking about like how the UI is organized so that it's usable. Because I think first and foremost, this is going to be a database browser. And the chat sort of interface should be kind of limited off to the side, sort of like how Cursor has it by default here on the side. So I think that's going to do it for today. And next up, we will work on getting the actual data showing, connecting to an actual database. But for now, I'm pretty happy with the progress here. So thanks for tuning in.